I don't usually take long-distance clients, it's risky, inconvenient. But when the offer came in, $10,000 up front for one night at the Stanley Hotel in Estes Park, Colorado, I couldn't say no. The instructions were oddly specific. Arrive alone, no calls, no texts, ask for room 616. I arrived late at night. The lobby was warm, with a crackling fireplace and soft jazz playing. A few guests lingered near the check-in desk, but something about the place felt off. The receptionist, a pale, thin man with hollow eyes, barely looked at me when I approached. "I have a reservation," I said, sliding my ID and confirmation email across the desk. He glanced at the screen, then frowned. "Room 616? "Yes." A strange silence stretched between us. He shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "That room hasn't been booked in years." His voice was quiet, almost unsure. I forced a polite smile. "Well, someone booked it and paid in advance." He hesitated. Then without a word, he slid me a key. Not a card, a physical key. The brass number 616 was engraved on the handle, old and worn. "Take the elevator," he muttered. "6th floor." As I turned away, I felt his eyes lingering on me, like he wanted to say something but thought better of it. The 6th floor was different. The hallway was dim, longer than it should be. The carpet beneath my heels felt damp, like someone had spilled water and let it sit for days. When I reached room 616, something felt wrong. The door didn't match the others. It looked newer, like it had been replaced. I slid the key in. The lock clicked. The door creaked open. Inside, the air was stale, carrying a faint metallic scent. The furniture was outdated, but the bed was made, the room seemingly untouched. A large mirror stood in the corner, its surface slightly fogged over. Then, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One missed call. Weird. I didn't even have service. The landline phone on the nightstand rang. A sharp, old-fashioned ring that echoed through the silent room. I picked it up. "Hello?" A woman's voice whispered back. My voice. "Get out, now." I froze. The line went dead. I turned slowly toward the mirror. My reflection stood a second too late. Then it smiled. I staggered backward, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. The mirror was wrong. My reflection shouldn't have moved like that. I waved a hand. The reflection followed, but lagged just slightly. The landline phone rang again. Burring. I grabbed it with shaking hands. "Who is this?" I demanded. A deep silence. Then my own voice whispered back, "You need to leave, but you won't." The line clicked dead. I rushed to the door, yanking the handle. Locked. I twisted, pulled harder. Nothing. The key was gone. Had I even left it in the door? My breath hitched. The air in the room had changed, heavier, colder. I turned toward the mirror again. My reflection was gone. No. Then I heard it. A soft exhale behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But the sheets on the bed had shifted. The pillows were indented, like someone had been lying there just moments ago. The air shifted and suddenly I wasn't alone. A figure. Me. Standing in the far corner facing the wall. Her shoulders twitched, like she was laughing silently. Then, her head snapped toward me, and I saw her eyes. Pure black. No whites, no pupils, just endless, empty voids. A grin stretched across her face, too wide, too unnatural. She took one step forward. I screamed. The lights flickered, and the room swallowed me whole. I woke up somewhere else. The air was thick, suffocating. The walls were the same, but the colors had faded. The lamps didn't glow like before, just a faint, sickly yellow flicker. The mirror was gone. The door was open. I ran. Down the hallway, past doors that no longer had numbers. The floor felt wrong, like I was running through water. The elevator wasn't there anymore. Instead, an open staircase spiraled downward. I had no choice. I took the steps, moving as fast as I could, my breathing ragged. But the further I went, the darker it got, until I was in complete blackness. And then, I was back in the lobby. The fire still crackled. The guests still sat in their places, but something was off. I stepped toward the receptionist's desk. The man was still there, but now he smiled. "You're early," he said. "They usually take longer." I blinked. "What?" He gestured behind me. I turned and saw myself, standing at the entrance, checking in. The realization hit me like a truck. I wasn't leaving. I was part of it now. The hotel always needed a guest in room 616, and now it had one. The receptionist handed me a key. "Welcome," he said. The brass tag read, "Room 616, permanent guest." Vegas at night has its own rhythm. Flashing lights, drunk tourists, high rollers, and people like me navigating the underbelly of the city. My name's Rachel, and I know the rules of the game. No real names, no personal stories. Keep it professional. Tonight was supposed to be easy money. A high-rise apartment in Trump Tower, client already prepaid. A quiet type, Daniel, mid-40s, sounded normal over the phone. No weird requests, just company. I called Vanessa, my partner for the night. She's newer to this, but catching on fast. We hopped in an Uber, heading to apartment 1902. "You ever notice how these guys with money are either super nice or total creeps?" Vanessa muttered, fixing her lipstick in the car mirror. "Yeah, let's hope this one's just boring." The lobby was quiet when we arrived. Private elevator, expensive place, the kind of building where people mind their own business. When the door opened, Daniel was exactly as I expected, well-dressed, clean-cut, polite. He smiled faintly, stepping aside to let us in. "Ladies, come in. Make yourselves comfortable." But the moment I crossed the threshold, something felt off. The apartment was too quiet. No music, no city noise, just the distant hum of the air conditioner. Daniel poured drinks, whiskey for himself, wine for Vanessa and me. I pretended to sip mine. Old habit. Never trust an open drink. The furniture looked untouched. No personal photos, no clutter. Just a perfectly staged space, like a showroom. And then I noticed the TV. It was on, but showing only static. No sound, just flickering gray and white fuzz. "Do you leave your TV like that on purpose?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Daniel took a slow sip of his whiskey. I liked the silence. Something cold crept up my spine. Vanessa, oblivious, stretched and smiled. "Mind if I use your bathroom?" Daniel nodded toward the hallway. "First door on the right." She disappeared into the dark corridor. I watched her go, suddenly uneasy. Daniel just stared at me, swirling his drink. And then from the hallway I heard Vanessa's sharp intake of breath. A second later, she was back, gripping my wrist. Her face was pale. "Rachel," she whispered, "there's a man in the bedroom. Just standing there." I turned to Daniel. He was still right there on the couch, sipping his drink. I could feel Vanessa's nails digging into my wrist. Her hand was ice cold. "What do you mean there's a man in the bedroom?" I whispered back. "I mean there's a man, standing in the corner, facing the wall, not moving." My throat went dry. I turned slowly to Daniel, still sitting right there on the couch. Calm, unbothered. He took another sip of his whiskey and smiled. "You saw him, huh?" he said, almost amused. A chill ran through me. "Who's in the bedroom, Daniel?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. His smile never faded. "Why don't you go check?" Vanessa squeezed my arm harder. "Rachel, let's just go. Please." I hesitated. Every instinct screamed run, but something about Daniel's calm, almost entertained expression made my stomach churn. Slowly, I turned toward the dark hallway. The light from the bathroom flickered. Shadows stretched along the walls. The bedroom door was half open. I took a step forward, then another. And as I reached the doorway, I saw him. A man, dressed exactly like Daniel. Same navy blue shirt, same short cropped hair. Standing in the corner, back turned, motionless. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Sir?" My voice came out weak. No response, no movement. Then I saw it. His feet weren't touching the ground. I froze. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. The man in the corner wasn't just standing. He was floating, barely an inch above the floor. The air in the room felt wrong, thick, like it was pressing down on me. And then, in the silence, I heard it. A soft whisper, right against my ear. "He's been here the whole time." I spun around, expecting to see someone behind me, but there was no one. Vanessa grabbed my wrist, yanking me away from the doorway. "Rachel, let's go. Now!" I barely registered her voice. My eyes darted back to the floating man, and in that moment, he twitched. Not a normal movement, a sharp, unnatural jerk like a glitch in reality. And then, he started turning around. Nope, nope, nope. Vanessa pulled me so hard I stumbled backward. We ran, straight for the door. Daniel was still there, sitting casually, watching us with mild curiosity. "Leaving so soon?" he asked, voice smooth. Vanessa reached the front door first, yanking at the handle. Locked. She slammed her fist against it. "Open the damn door!" I spun back to Daniel, breathing hard. "Who is that in the bedroom?" He swirled his whiskey, tilting his head. "I told you," he murmured. "He's been here the whole time." The bedroom door behind me creaked open wider, and then footsteps. The footsteps were slow, deliberate. The sound of bare feet against cold tile. Vanessa was still fighting the lock, her breath ragged. "Rachel, help me." But I couldn't move. I was frozen, staring at the dark hallway. The man, the thing in the bedroom, was coming. Daniel, still sitting on the couch, watched me with that same damn smile, like he was enjoying a private joke. "You shouldn't have looked," he murmured. And then the lights cut out. Total darkness. Vanessa screamed. I turned blindly, fumbling for my phone. The screen lit up the space for half a second, just long enough to see the bedroom door now wide open. And in the doorway, the floating man. His face was wrong, a blurry, shifting mess, like someone had smeared his features with wet paint. And then, he moved. Fast. Right toward me. I barely had time to react before Vanessa yanked me out of the way. The front door flew open. We bolted. Down the hallway, into the elevator, slamming the button. Any floor. Just get us out. The doors closed just as we saw it, Daniel, standing in the hallway. But his face was gone, just smooth, empty skin. The elevator dropped. Neither of us spoke. We just breathed. Shook. When the doors opened in the lobby, we ran. Didn't stop. Didn't look back. That night, I checked the rental listings for Trump Tower, Las Vegas. Apartment 1902? Still available, but the listing had no photos. Just 2 words in the description. Do not disturb. People always assume being an escort is easy money. They think it's just putting on a nice dress, playing the part, and cashing out. But what they don't realize is the risk. The kind that keeps you awake at night. The kind that makes you wonder if tonight is the night you don't make it back. I've been doing this long enough to know better. But Lauren, she's still fresh. Optimistic. Thinks she can handle anything. It was around 11:30 p.m. on a Friday night in Vegas when we got the call. A private client, high-end, said he wanted 2 girls for the night at his estate in Bel Air, Los Angeles. Pay was generous, $5,000 up front, another $5,000 on arrival. Bel Air, huh? I said, scrolling through the address he sent. Rich guys are usually safer, but they're also freaks. Lauren laughed, already fixing her makeup. Come on, Vanessa, it's an easy score. Quick trip, We'll be back by tomorrow morning. I wasn't convinced. We don't even know this guy. She rolled her eyes and pulled out her phone. Google him. We did. Mr. Hastings. Seemed real enough. CEO of some investment firm. No arrests, no scandals. The house was legit. A massive estate tucked away in the hills. After a few more checks, I sighed. Fine. But if anything feels off, we leave. Lauren just smiled. Relax, Mom. It's gonna be fun. Famous last words. The drive was quiet. The city lights faded behind us as we hit the freeway. Lauren was playing music, humming along while I stared at the location on Google Maps. The pin was in Bel Air, but the actual address? It led to a road that didn't even show up on Street View. That was my first red flag. Did he send you the right place? I asked. Lauren shrugged. Rich people love their privacy. Maybe it's a gated property. Maybe. But something about it felt off. After 3 hours, we turned onto a winding road, surrounded by trees and darkness. No streetlights, just the eerie glow of our headlights cutting through the night. The pin on the map said we were close, but all we saw was a tall black gate with security cameras mounted on top. Before we could say anything, a figure stepped out of the shadows. A security guard wearing a black suit and earpiece. No logo, no ID, just a cold stare. IDs, he said, extending his hand. I hesitated. Why do you need them? Standard procedure. You'll get them back when you leave. I glanced at Lauren. She gave me a small nod. Reluctantly, I handed over my ID, watching as he wrote down our names, our license plate. Everything. Park over there, he said, pointing to a gravel lot next to the gate. Mr. Hastings's driver will take you the rest of the way. My stomach twisted. Something about this wasn't right. Lauren, of course, was already fixing her lipstick in the mirror. Vanessa, chill. This is how these things work. Before I could argue, a black Bentley pulled up, headlights cutting through the darkness. The back window rolled down just enough for me to see a man in a suit and dark sunglasses. Get in, he said. I hesitated. Lauren grabbed my hand, squeezing it. We'll be fine. I didn't believe her. And deep down, I think she didn't believe herself either. The Bentley rolled through the massive black gates, swallowing us into the darkness beyond. As we drove, I realized something. This wasn't a house. It was a compound. The driveway stretched way longer than it should have, winding through a heavily wooded area. No neighbors, no street noise, just the deep, unsettling quiet of a place built to keep people in, not out. Lauren was still acting like everything was fine, scrolling through Instagram like we weren't in the middle of nowhere. You ever get the feeling something's off? I whispered. She smirked. All the time. But that's the thrill, right? Before I could answer, the trees opened up, revealing a massive mansion, the kind you see in movies. Spotlights lit up a white stone driveway with a fountain in the center and luxury cars parked in perfect rows. It was the kind of wealth that felt dangerous. Lauren whistled. Damn. Guess we hit the jackpot. I wasn't so sure. The Bentley came to a stop and the driver, who still hadn't said a word, gestured for us to step out. As I did, I noticed a group of men near the pool sitting at a round table playing cards. There was something strange about them. They weren't talking, just watching. A woman stepped out of the pool, naked, dripping wet, smiling. Hey, you must be the new girls, she said casually, wrapping a towel around herself. I'm China. I glanced at Lauren. New girls. Before I could ask, China grinned. Come inside. Hastings is waiting. I wanted to turn around. I wanted to leave, but we had already stepped inside, and the doors behind us locked automatically. The inside was even worse. The house was too big, too quiet, like a museum where no one actually lived. Dim lighting, long hallways, paintings of people with eyes that seemed to follow you. And then there was the smell. Bleach. China led us into a massive dining room where 4 other women were already seated. They were beautiful, but they weren't smiling. Their eyes darted to each other, to the door, To us, I recognized the look. They wanted to leave. Lauren sat down, still oblivious, but my hands were ice cold. Then he walked in. Mr. Hastings, 60, maybe older. White hair, perfect suit, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. He walked slowly, like he was enjoying the moment. "Welcome, ladies," he said smoothly, pouring himself a drink. "Tonight is a special night." No one spoke. I looked at Lauren, but before I could whisper anything, one of the girls at the table, a brunette with a shaking hand, leaned in and muttered one word under her breath. "Run." My blood went cold. Mr. Hastings set his glass down, tilting his head as if he'd heard her. Then he smiled. "Shall we begin?" The doors behind us locked again. My pulse was hammering. The word "run" echoed in my head, but there was nowhere to go. Lauren, still clueless, smiled at Mr. Hastings. "So, what's on the agenda?" The way she said it, like this was just another job, made my stomach twist. She had no idea. Mr. Hastings sipped his drink, studying each of us. "Patience, my dear." His eyes lingered on the brunette who had whispered, "I don't like interruptions." She immediately lowered her gaze. Something about the way she shrank into herself told me she'd seen what happens when someone disobeys. China, still wrapped in a towel, leaned over to me, her lips barely moving. "Listen carefully. If he offers you a drink, don't take it." I swallowed hard. "Why?" "Because," she whispered, "the ones who drink don't leave." I felt sick. A waiter appeared, placing 6 glasses of dark red wine on the table. Hastings lifted his and gestured for us to do the same. Lauren, of course, reached for hers. I grabbed her wrist under the table, squeezing it hard. "Not thirsty," I said quickly. Hastings raised an eyebrow. "No, it's a special blend." I forced a smile. "I don't drink on the job." Lauren hesitated but followed my lead, setting her glass down. The brunette, however, was too slow. Hastings' smile dropped. "Drink." She flinched but obeyed, taking a hesitant sip. China closed her eyes. Something told me this girl had just made a fatal mistake. After dinner, Hastings clapped his hands. "Time for a wardrobe change." 2 massive double doors swung open, revealing a walk-in closet the size of an entire apartment. But this wasn't any closet. It was filled with uniforms, cheerleader outfits, Catholic schoolgirl skirts, ballet leotards, each one perfectly pressed, waiting. I suddenly couldn't breathe. Lauren grabbed a short red dress off the rack, laughing. "Damn, someone's got to type." "Pick something," Hastings said, his tone leaving no room for argument. I stayed frozen. I don't know what it was. Maybe the smell of cheap perfume clinging to the fabric, or the fact that each hanger was labeled with a name. Names that weren't ours. Lauren was already changing, slipping into a tight blue dress. I hesitated, then I saw it. A hidden door at the back of the closet, slightly ajar. Behind it was a set of stairs leading down. I looked back. Hastings and the other men were busy, laughing about something. No one was watching. My body moved before my brain could stop it. I stepped inside, and what I found shouldn't have existed. It was a room of cameras, surveillance monitors, recording equipment, dozens of tapes labeled with dates, and in the center of the room, a steel door locked from the outside. A noise behind me. Footsteps. I spun just as a voice whispered, "You need to leave. Now." My breath hitched. The voice belonged to China. She stood just behind me, eyes wide, one hand clutching the door frame. "You weren't supposed to see this," she whispered. I swallowed hard. "What the hell is this room?" China's eyes flicked toward the surveillance monitors. The screens showed multiple angles of the mansion, including the dining room, the pool, and the guest rooms upstairs. But there was one camera feed that stood out. The screen in the middle showed a dark, concrete room, with a single steel chair bolted to the floor. A chain dangled from the ceiling, and in the corner of the screen was the brunette from dinner. She was sitting on the floor, unmoving. My stomach twisted. "Where is that room?" China didn't answer. She just grabbed my arm. "Listen to me. I can help you get out, but we have to move now." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. I didn't have time to argue. We slipped out of the hidden room and into the closet just as the basement door creaked open behind us. I turned just in time to see Mr. Hastings step inside, his piercing blue eyes scanning the closet. He smiled. "Vanessa," he said smoothly, "why aren't you dressed yet?" I forced a smile. "Just taking my time." Hastings chuckled. "That's good. We like girls who put in effort." His gaze flicked to China. "Why are you here?" China didn't miss a beat. "Helping them find the right outfits." For a moment, Hastings just stared at her. Then he exhaled, clapping his hands together. "Well, don't take too long. The night is just getting started." As soon as he left, I turned to China. "I'm not staying here." She nodded. "Neither am I." I spotted Lauren still adjusting her dress in front of a mirror. "Lauren, we need to go." She frowned. "What? Why?" China grabbed her by the shoulders. "Because if you stay, you're not leaving." Lauren blinked. "Wait, what are you talking about?" I didn't have time to explain. China gestured toward a set of glass doors at the far end of the hallway. "That leads to the back patio. If we can make it to the trees, we're gone." It was risky, but it was our only shot. We slipped out of the closet, moving quickly down the dimly lit hall. My heart was hammering. We were so close. Then I heard it. A voice, coming from the main hallway. "Where are they?" China cursed under her breath. "They know." We sprinted for the doors. I grabbed the handle, pushed, locked. Behind us, the sound of footsteps rushing toward us. I turned, panicked, but China was already moving. She grabbed a heavy decorative vase from a table and smashed it straight through the glass. The alarm shrieked. "Run!" she screamed. We ran. We ran like our lives depended on it, because they did. Glass crunched beneath my heels as I bolted across the patio, heart slamming against my ribs. Behind me, men shouted orders, their voices sharp, urgent. The alarm was still blaring, cutting through the night air like a siren of doom. China was already ahead, barefoot, moving like she'd done this before. Lauren was struggling, her dress snagging on a chair as she tried to keep up. A gunshot rang out. I flinched, ducking low as a bullet shattered a pool light beside us, sending shards of glass into the water. "They're shooting at us," Lauren gasped. "They don't want us leaving," China yelled back. "Move!" We made it to the tree line where the darkness finally swallowed us. My lungs burned, my legs ached, but I did not stop running. Branches whipped against my skin. I tripped, falling to my knees, but China pulled me up before I could register the pain. Behind us, I heard dogs barking. "They're letting the dogs loose," I whispered, panic rising. Lauren whimpered. "We're dead." China grabbed my wrist and pointed to something ahead, a fence barely visible in the dark. "If we get over that, we're out of here." The barking was getting closer. We had seconds. China climbed first, scaling the iron bars like she was born for it. Lauren followed, slipping once but pulling herself up. I was last. My hands were slick with sweat as I gripped the metal bars. I lifted myself up, and then I heard the snapping of jaws right beneath me. One of the dogs jumped, barely missing my foot. I threw myself over the other side, landing hard on the grass. My ankle screamed in pain, but I didn't stop. The three of us ran into the darkness, the sound of Hastings' men fading behind us. We had escaped, or so we thought. The sun was starting to rise when we finally made it to a road, an empty road. My body felt broken. Every muscle ached, my ankle was swelling, but I didn't care. We were alive. Lauren collapsed onto the pavement, gasping for air. "We need to call someone." China shook her head. "No cops. No one will believe us." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She gave a bitter laugh. "You think this is the first time this has happened?" That sent a chill down my spine. Before I could say anything else, headlights appeared in the distance. A car was coming. We waved it down, desperate, exhausted. A middle-aged man rolled down the window. "You girls okay?" I almost cried. "Please, can you take us to the nearest gas station?" The man nodded. "Hop in." For the first time all night, I thought we were finally safe. We drove in silence for a while, the weight of everything sinking in. I was staring at my hands when I noticed it. The man's hands were too clean. No wrinkles, no veins, too smooth for someone his age. Then I saw it. A ring. A gold ring with a black insignia. The same ring Mr. Hastings had been wearing. My throat closed. He knew. He was one of them. The man smiled, looking at me through the rearview mirror. "You ladies have a good night?" My blood ran cold. Lauren tensed beside me. China grabbed my hand under the seat. We did not answer. The car pulled into a gas station. The man handed me something, a small envelope. "Mr. Hastings wanted you to have this," he said. I didn't move. He smiled again. "No need to run. Not tonight." Then he drove away. Hands shaking, I opened the envelope. Inside was a single Polaroid picture. It was a photo of us, me, Lauren, and China, sitting at the dinner table just hours earlier. On the bottom of the photo, written in black ink, were 4 words: "See you next time." The phone buzzed on the nightstand, shaking against the cheap glass. I groaned, rolling over, blinking at the neon red glow of the alarm clock. 1:47 a.m. "Riley, pick up," Zara muttered, face buried in the pillow. I sighed, grabbed the phone. "Jace, our driver, bodyguard, babysitter. Got a job for you too. High-end client, already paid up front. No games, no BS." That caught my attention. Most guys tried to haggle, stall, promise tips that never came. Paying up front, that never happened. "Where?" I asked. 900 North Michigan, penthouse suite. Wants both of you." Zara perked up. That building was old money. Luxury, security, power. Not some rundown motel off I-90. "When?" "Now." I looked at Zara. She shrugged. "If he paid, he's serious." We got dressed fast. Zara in red, me in black. Tight, elegant, expensive. We played the part well. No one paid for average. Jace was already outside, leaning against the car, cigarette burning low. "This one's weird," he said, blowing out smoke. Didn't leave a name, just said he'd be waiting. "How much up front?" I asked. $2,000. Zara whistled. Jesus. We got in the car, the city lights blurring past as we headed toward North Michigan Avenue. The whole ride, something gnawed at me. No name, no negotiations. High price. Something felt off. 48th floor. We stepped out of the elevator into a silent, dimly lit hallway. The only sound was the faint hum of city traffic below. His door was at the end of the hall. Penthouse 4801. I knocked. Nothing. I knocked again. A slow creak. The door opened just enough for a sliver of candlelight to spill out. A man stood in the shadows. Tall, broad-shouldered, expensive suit. But something was wrong. His tie was loose, his shirt half-buttoned, dark stains blooming across the white fabric. Wine? Blood? "Come in," he said, voice slow, thick. We stepped inside. The apartment was massive, but dark. Too dark. Candles lined the floor, flickering against the marble walls. The air smelled heavy, metallic. Zara smiled, slipping into character. "Nice place." He didn't answer. I looked around. No TV, no music, no food. Just a low, expensive couch, a glass coffee table, and a locked door at the back of the room. That itch in my gut grew worse. He finally spoke. "Take off your shoes." Zara shot me a look. Red flag. "House rules," he added. We did it. We'd seen worse. Drinks? He asked. Zara nodded. Sure, but payment first. He smiled, slow, like he was savoring the moment. Later, I stiffened. No, that's not how it works, I said. This isn't a trust exercise. His smile faded. His hand tightened around his glass. Zara tried to smooth it over. We just like to get business out of the way first so we can have a good time, you know? Silence. Then, a muffled buzz. My phone. I glanced at my bag. The agency. I pulled it out, read the screen. Leave. Now. A chill ran down my spine. I looked up. Dalton was staring right at me. I swallowed hard, my fingers tightening around my phone. Leave. Now. The words burned into my brain. Zara noticed my reaction but kept her cool. She leaned in, running a finger along the rim of her glass. So, Dalton, she purred, using the name the agency had given us. What do you do? He didn't answer right away. He just stared at me. Then, finally, I watch. A slow, deliberate sip of his drink. Zara let out a soft laugh. Watch what? Dalton smirked. People. Their tendencies. I forced a smile, but my skin was crawling. This was wrong. We needed to leave. Now. I nudged Zara under the table. She glanced at me, catching the urgency in my eyes. She shifted gears. You know what? I think we should freshen up first. Where's your bathroom? Dalton gestured toward the dark hallway behind him. Second door on the right. I stood up. Come with me? I asked Zara. Dalton's eyes narrowed. Only one at a time. Nope. Absolutely not. Zara shot me another glance. Actually, I changed my mind. Let's just get to the fun part, she said, sitting back down. Dalton relaxed slightly, but I could see it in his eyes. He was playing a game. I forced another smile. Sure, but first, payment. House rules, remember? His expression darkened. You'll get your money after. I felt Zara tense beside me. This was the sign, the one we never ignored. No money up front meant no control. I reached for my bag, keeping my movements slow, calm. All right, but I need to check something first. Dalton moved, fast. Before I could react, his hand clamped over my wrist. You're not leaving, he murmured. For a second, I froze. The grip on my wrist was like iron, tight, unyielding. Zara's voice broke through the tension. Dalton, let go. He didn't. Instead, he leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. I paid for 2 hours. You're staying. Something inside me snapped. Screw this. I yanked my arm back hard, knocking over the glass on the table. The sound shattered the silence. Dalton blinked, his jaw clenching. Then slowly he stood up. That's when I saw it. The cuts. His sleeves had ridden up, revealing dozens of slashes across his forearms. Deep, fresh. Blood seeped from some of them, soaking into his cuffs. I heard Zara suck in a breath. What the hell? Dalton took a step back and unbuttoned his shirt. The candlelight flickered over his chest. Symbols, carved into his skin, jagged and deep, some still bleeding. You've done this before, he murmured. You think you can just walk away? A chill ran down my spine. Walk away from what? Behind him, something scraped against the locked door in the hallway. Zara grabbed my arm. We need to go now. Dalton smiled. Go where? The door was locked. The phones had no signal. And something was moving in the other room. Zara's nails dug into my wrist. Riley, she whispered. We are leaving. Right now. Dalton just stood there, breathing slow and steady. His eyes locked onto me like he was studying an insect trapped in a jar. The scraping sound behind the locked door got louder. Something was in there. I forced myself to keep calm. All right, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Let's slow down, okay? We don't have to rush into anything. Dalton tilted his head slightly, watching me like a predator sizing up prey. Zara took a slow step back toward the door. I followed. Dalton smiled. "You don't get it, do you?" His voice was almost gentle. "You already walked in, there's no leaving." Zara lunged for the door handle. It wouldn't budge. Locked. "Jace is outside," I blurted out. "He knows where we are." Dalton took a step closer, and I saw it. The gleam of a knife tucked into his waistband. "I know," he murmured. I saw him pull away. Zara and I locked eyes. Jace wasn't outside anymore. Dalton reached into his pocket and pulled something out. A phone. My phone. My stomach dropped. How did he... He held it up, turned the screen to face me. No signal. No way to call for help. The scraping sound behind the locked door grew more frantic. Something started knocking. I couldn't breathe. "Sit down," Dalton said, his tone final. Zara and I didn't move. The knocking turned into pounding. The locked door shook against its hinges. And then, Dalton turned toward the door and unlocked it. The second he twisted the lock, the door slammed open. A woman staggered out. At least I think it was a woman. Her skin was gray, stretched tight over her bones like old leather. Her eyes were gone, just two empty sockets staring straight ahead. Deep red scratches covered her arms, her fingers twisted and broken. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Dalton stepped aside, watching us, enjoying this. Zara let out a choked gasp. "What the hell?" The woman moved toward me. Fast. I screamed and stumbled back, slamming into the coffee table. My hands hit something cold. A knife. Dalton's knife. He'd left it there when he unlocked the door. My fingers closed around the handle. The woman lunged. I didn't think. I swung. The knife sank into her chest. She didn't scream. She didn't bleed. She just stopped. Then slowly, her head tilted toward me. Dalton laughed. My blood turned to ice. She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was inhuman, bone-crushing. I tried to pull away, but I couldn't. Dalton leaned in, whispering in my ear, "Now you understand." The room tilted. Everything went black. Everything was dark. Not the kind of darkness when you close your eyes, but something deeper. Something that felt like it had weight, like it was alive. A voice, distant. Zara. "Riley, wake up." A rush of air hit my face. I gasped, my vision snapping back into focus. Dalton was still there, standing over me, watching. His eyes were different now. Black. Completely black. The woman, the thing, was still clutching my wrist, her grip ice cold. But something was wrong with her. The knife was still buried in her chest, but she was shaking. Her body flickered, like a glitching image on a screen. Dalton took a slow step forward. "She likes you," he murmured. I yanked my hand away with everything I had. The woman didn't stop me, she just froze, staring. Zara was at my side in an instant, pulling me up. "We need to go. Now." Dalton's face twisted into something I can only describe as wrong. His mouth curled into a grin that stretched too far. "We're not done yet," he said. Zara didn't wait. She grabbed the nearest object, a candle holder, and smashed it across his face. Dalton staggered back, cursing. The woman in the doorway started screaming. Not a normal scream, a sound that made my ears ring, my brain feel like it was melting. Zara dragged me toward the door. "Riley, move!" We bolted down the hallway. Behind us, the lights flickered violently. The walls seemed to breathe. Dalton was laughing, not chasing us, just laughing. The elevator was down the hall, doors wide open. Jace stood inside, eyes wide. "What the hell?" We didn't stop running. We dived inside. The doors slammed shut. As the elevator dropped, I caught one last glimpse of Dalton standing at the end of the hall, grinning through blood-stained teeth. The woman was gone, but her scream echoed the whole way down. 3 days later, Zara and I never talked about what happened. We left Chicago that night. Blocked the agency. Blocked Jace. Blocked everything. I told myself it was over, that whatever happened in penthouse 4801 died in that apartment. But then, a package arrived at my motel. No return address. Just my name printed neatly on the label. Inside was my phone, the one Dalton had taken. The screen was cracked, but it still worked. Only one thing was on it. A single photo. A black and white image of the woman, standing outside my motel room, staring directly into the camera. The day had been long, one client after another, money stacking up in my wallet until I could barely fold it. It was risky carrying that much cash, but I was too lazy to stop by the bank. Besides, Riley and I had been doing this long enough to know how to stay safe. Riley was my partner in this. She was a bit careless when it came to money, so I always held on to our earnings. It worked out. At around 6 p.m., my phone buzzed with an incoming request. The guy wanted one of us, not both. Standard. The address? Bronx River Road, Yonkers. Not exactly the safest area, but not the worst either. How much is he offering? Riley asked, tying her hair up in a lazy bun. I checked the message. 500 for an hour. Good enough, she muttered, slipping on her jacket. We'd been to sketchier places before. If we were careful, we'd be out in no time. The apartment building looked run down but livable. It wasn't some crack house, but it definitely wasn't luxury either. The lobby smelled like cheap cleaning chemicals trying to cover up something worse. We knocked. The door swung open fast, almost like the guy had been waiting right behind it. Vicente. Tall, built like a brick wall, tattoos crawling up his arms and neck. He had that paranoid look, eyes darting between us, checking the hallway behind us before jerking his head. Inside. Now. The moment we stepped in, he locked the door. My stomach tightened. Never a good sign. Lift your shirts, he ordered, eyes scanning us. I need to know you're clean. I kept my face neutral as I pulled my shirt up just enough to show I wasn't wired. Riley did the same. Vicente leaned back, rubbing his jaw, thinking. Just one of you. The other one waits. I forced a smile. Your choice. He smirked, nodding toward Riley. You, bedroom, now. Riley shot me a look, one we'd exchanged 100 times before. Stay alert. Wait in the bathroom, Vicente told me. Don't touch, shoot. I nodded, walking toward the small, dimly lit bathroom. The door clicked shut behind me, and just like that, I was alone. Sitting in the bathroom, I tried to stay calm, but something felt off. The usual sounds were there at first. Bed frame creaking, muffled voices. Standard. But then, something different. A loud thud, glass shattering, then a low groan. My pulse spiked. That wasn't normal. I grabbed my phone and silently set an alarm for 1 minute. A trick I'd learned. If things ever went bad, I could use it as a distraction. I knocked lightly on the door. Everything good? Silence. No, wait. Whispering. I could barely hear it, but it wasn't Riley's voice. It was Vicente, low and tense like he was gritting his teeth while talking. I cracked the door open an inch, and that's when I saw her. Riley was curled up against the wall, arms wrapped around her knees, shaking. Vicente stood over her, one arm on the wall, blocking her in. His chest rose and fell in quick, furious breaths. You think you can play me? He growled. You think I'm some kind of joke? Ice shot through my veins. This wasn't some rough client. This was bad. I stepped fully into the room. What's going on? I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. Vicente snapped his head toward me. His pupils were wide, dilated. He was high, agitated. She's broken, he spat, waving toward Riley like she was some defective product. I want my money back. I glanced at the floor. Her purse had been emptied. Makeup, condoms, cash scattered everywhere. Okay, let's work this out, I said, stalling for time. Vicente's nostrils flared, his eyes locked onto me. Your bag, now. I didn't hesitate. I tossed it toward him, trying to buy a few seconds. He ripped it open, dumping out my entire day's earnings. My heart sank, but I kept my face neutral. Then, I took a gamble. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. Cute. You think that's your money? Vicente squinted. Doubt. He wasn't expecting that. You think you're taking it from us? I pressed on. That money isn't ours. It belongs to our boss. He hesitated. Just enough. That's when my phone alarm went off. I pretended to answer a call. Yeah, he just took it. I kept my voice calm but serious. You want his description? Okay. 6'4", tattoos, apartment 201, Bronx River Road. Black shirt. Got it. Vicente froze. I saw it. The flicker of fear. Oh yeah, there's only one guy here. I continued. You're already at the McDonald's? Damn, that was fast. Vicente's face drained of color. I pushed harder. Oh, and by the way, Riley's hurt. He roughed her up. She's probably done working for the night. That was the breaking point. Vicente snapped. He threw the money into the air. Take it and get the hell out. I didn't wait. Riley grabbed the cash, now. Riley was still frozen, shaking, eyes darting between Vicente and the scattered cash. Move now, I hissed. That snapped her out of it. She scrambled to the floor, grabbing fistfuls of bills, stuffing them into her purse with trembling hands. Vicente didn't stop her. He was pacing now, running a hand through his short hair, breathing heavily. His paranoia had completely taken over. I took a slow step toward the door, keeping my eyes locked on him. We're leaving. No problems, right? Nothing. No response. He just stared at the wall, mumbling to himself. I could hear my own pulse in my ears as I inched backward, one step at a time. Riley was already at the door, her breath shallow and uneven. I grabbed the doorknob, twisting it slowly. Clunk. Deadbolt. Locked. Shit. Unlock it, I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. Vicente's head snapped toward me, his lips curled upward. He was smiling. You think it's that easy? He muttered. Something changed in his stance, a shift, a realization. His fear turned into something else, something darker. You really thought you could just walk out of here? Riley let out a quiet whimper. No, this was going south fast. Then, boom, a sudden, loud bang from outside, a car door slamming, footsteps. Someone was walking through the hallway. Vicente stiffened. Riley and I seized the moment. I lunged for the lock, twisting it so hard it nearly broke. Riley ripped the door open just as Vicente grabbed at her arm. Run! We burst into the hallway, sprinting full speed toward the stairs. My vision tunneled, my lungs burned, but I didn't stop. I didn't dare look back. We hit the front door, shoving it open and bolting toward our car. We threw ourselves inside, and I slammed the lock button before fumbling with the ignition. My hands were shaking too hard to get the key in. Hurry the hell up, Riley gasped. I jammed the key in, turned it. The engine roared to life. I threw the car into reverse, tires screeching against the pavement. We peeled out of the parking lot, leaving Bronx River Road behind. Neither of us spoke for a full minute. We finally stopped at a 7-Eleven parking lot. The overhead lights flickered, buzzing faintly in the silence. I looked over at Riley. She was staring at the windshield, eyes empty, hands still trembling. You okay? I asked. She swallowed hard. No. Neither was I. I ran a hand over my face, exhaling sharply. We should have never gone there. No shit, she muttered, voice barely above a whisper. For a long time, we just sat there. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind a heavy exhaustion. I reached for my purse, expecting to see our hard-earned money. It was still there, most of it. But now it didn't feel like a win. You ever think about leaving this life? I asked. Riley let out a dry laugh. And do what? Work at a Walmart? She was joking, but I could hear the pain in her voice. I didn't answer, because I didn't have one. The truth was, we'd been lucky tonight, but luck always runs out.